My dad was a member of the Communist Party, and so that gave him access to some influential people in the local government. He saved up money and he bribed them to allow us to go on this vacation to Italy. We couldn't say, okay, we're going on vacation to America. Like, obvious that you're escaping, right? Literally tells me, like, son, the actions that you see are deliberately designed to confuse society, to separate society from one another, to create debt, create inflation, for big government to get even bigger. This is exactly how the Communist Manifesto works. In Armenia, stores are empty. You're waiting in long lines for bread, butter, for cheese, only to get to the end of the line and sorry, we're out. More Americans saw what I saw and what third world country people see and experience. You will appreciate the United States even during its worst times.
Remember, adversity is your advantage.
Hey friends, welcome back to the CEO Show with Bryce Henson. Another month with my man, Bedros Keuilian. Welcome to the show, my friend.
Hey man, good to be on the new set. I love it.
That is it. So the CEO Show, this is actually your guidance and brainchild that we were joking off set. I've been following your coaching for 12 years. And actually, before we go into a little bit of the backstory, which the show is dedicated to teaching leadership, promoting capitalism, and defending free speech, we're going to talk a little bit about your backstory. But before we go into that, we'd love to give the audience some insight on what you saw in terms of the pivot and why this show is coming to creation.
Well, what I saw was how passionate you are, like, especially in 2020 with the pandemic. You certainly spoke up about the lack of leadership in our country, right? In terms of from individuals, because anytime we look at the guy up top, the president, doesn't matter if it's Trump or Biden or anyone in between, it's the individual that has the most amount of influence on him or herself. Lack of leadership on themselves, entrepreneurs, business owners, Joe Public citizen. Lack of understanding of capitalism.
Yes.
And there's a massive brainwashing that's taking place, and you and I talk about that at the universities, on social media. And so when you have the next generation coming up who believes that capitalism is actually detrimental to our country, and they believe a Marxist or a communist government is more favorable because this is what they're being brainwashed.
Correct.
The irony is that I come from a communist country and I've seen what communism does, and it is not good for the masses. It is not good. The ideology of it might sound well, but it is not good in practice. And so freedom, which leaves freedom. It's like we live in a state like California, and I know we talk about how awesome the state is, the climate, the demographics, the topography, mountains, ocean, dry air, right? It's not humid. It's like it's either fall or spring, fall, spring, or summer. We don't really have a winter. It's great, but it's like there's also the fear of what happens to this country in terms of, or the state in terms of the politics, and we begin to lose our freedoms. And this isn't the only one. New York's very much like this, and Pennsylvania and Michigan and others. And so it just made sense as I kept watching what you're doing that while the fitness CEO is good, the CEO show is better because we have freedom, we have leadership, and we address capitalism, which are all things that underpin the American way. Like if you were to say what underpins the American way, it's that: leadership, capitalism, freedom. And if we don't have that, what do we have? We're just another Marxist, communist country. And you are very vocal about that. You were in 2020 and beyond, and you've always been that way. And so I just figured, like, this would be a great show for you to talk about because you're so passionate about it. It's you. It's in your DNA. It's what you reek of, as they say in EOS, right?
Yeah. Well, love that. And I appreciate that, and kindred spirits. And just want to acknowledge you. You've also given me that platform, that confidence to continue to speak out. And it's interesting. I mean, this country that we live in, the United States, it is the biggest superpower, the richest country in the history of all time. And it's founded on strong leadership and strong capitalism and defending of free speech. And it's crazy to me that in universities and a lot of these, platforms, that communism is getting a good name and capitalism, the reason for our success, is a bad name. So with all that said, there's a lot of content that we're going to produce on the show, but it's just so fitting that this show is dropping second week of July, just after the 4th of July. And we're going to talk a little bit about you, your origin story, and your background, escaping communism, coming to the beautiful United States. So I have some granular questions about the journey, but I think it's just best to be able to kind of throw it up to you just to give a little backstory. How did it all come to be?
Well, I mean, it came to be because my dad is my hero. That's really how it came to be. And you imagine the year was 1980. I was 6 years old in 1980, and my dad and mom decided that they were going to escape. And my older brother knew that. My older sister knew that. I did not know that. I knew that something was happening. We lived in Armenia, Soviet Union. At the time, it was under Soviet control. And, there was talk about us going on a vacation, and I didn't know where we were going on a vacation and why this talk was so secretive sometimes, where my sister would stay with me and my brother's 14 years older than me. So, my brother, who was 19 at the time, and my mom and my dad would kind of meet in a separate room and talk about this vacation. I'm like, why can't I hear about it? I've been on other vacations before with them.
And you're 6 years old at the time.
Yeah. And I vacationed in out there in Russia, I guess, in Odessa, right? Like where the Olympics took place. And I remember those conversations were exciting, and we talked about what we're going to do. We're going to get corn on the cob at the beach, et cetera. Like that was a popular thing to get. But this one was very different, and I knew something was up. And so as we packed the suitcases, turns out, a year and a half earlier, my dad was already building the foundation of that. My dad was a member of the Communist Party. About 5 years earlier, he got accepted into the Communist Party, and so that gave him access to some influential people in the local government that he could bribe. He saved up money and he bribed them to allow us to go on this vacation to Italy, right? Because Italy was a communist sympathizer. We couldn't say, hey, we're going on vacation to America. Like, it's obvious that you're escaping, right?
Yeah.
So we went to Italy June 6th. We were in Italy. 1980, yep. And that day, so there was these hotels, I was telling you about it on this last trip. There was these hotels in Rome, Italy, that were dedicated to helping immigrants, Jewish immigrants like Russian Jews, Armenian immigrants, etc. Give them a place to stay while they go and talk to the American consul why they are seeking asylum. And of course, we were seeking political asylum because my dad was like, I don't want to be a member of the Communist Party anymore. So after 10 days of being pumped for information at the American consulate in Rome, Italy, we landed in JFK on June 16th, 1980. And from JFK, we took a plane to Southern California. People always say, why California? My dad knew a friend of a friend who would allow us to stay in his 2-bedroom apartment. So he and his wife shared 1 bedroom, and he had another bedroom for the 5 of us for 30 days. He said, you guys can, because you're a friend of a friend, you can stay here for 30 days, but then my wife wants you guys out. Like, it's a small apartment. We totally get it. So in those 30 days, by day 2, my dad had a job as a paper, for a paper route. By day 4 or 5, he had the paper route, and he was pumping gas at a gas station.
And he probably couldn't speak a lick of English
No,
at the time, or very little.
No English at all.
Yeah.
I mean, he learned in the trenches. People would teach him. This gentleman who let us, stay in his spare bedroom for that 30 days helped us start the process of what it takes to get on food stamps and to get Section 8 housing, which is government-assisted housing, so that 30 days later, we moved out and we had our own Section 8 housing complex that we got to live in, which was, just overrun with roaches and lice and just degenerates and other immigrants just like us. But it was a very discounted housing situation. And we had food stamps, and we were able to start making some progress. But my dad was willing to take that risk of escaping the Soviet Union, putting his life on the line. Because if you get caught as a Communist Party member, you get caught escaping, right? You are sent to Siberia, never to be seen again. Like that's it. There's no does he get a court hearing, or is there a trial of, his peers who decide what happens to him? That's it. Like you just disgraced the motherland. You know what I mean? Mother Russia.
Mother Russia.
Yeah.
And how did he from hearing your stories, did he bribe, or how did he actually make that move?
He made that move. So 5 years earlier, so around 1975, so I was 1 year old, he was asked. So what ends up happening is everybody works for the government there. everybody. Everything's owned by the government system, just like North Korea, right? And so he worked his way up from a tailor to running a little men's suit alterations and fabrication department to overseeing 300 seamstresses and tailors. And so once you work your way up into operational management in a factory, and you're a good soldier, if you will, which is fun sidebar, my mom was a seamstress. The way my mom and dad met, my mom was a seamstress that worked under him. My dad tells a funny story that my mom was a horrible seamstress. The work she did kept having to be returned again by quality control. He kept trying to make her better. The higher-ups kept encouraging him to fire her. He kept saying, I think I can make her better, knowing that he couldn't. My mom's side of the story, she's dead now. She died this past September. My mom's side of the story was she knew that my dad found her attractive, so she knew she wasn't going to get fired. So she made zero attempt at getting better as a seamstress, right? Yeah, yeah. But that's how they met and ended up falling in love and getting married for 67 years.
I love that.
Yeah.
I've heard this story many times. I haven't
Yeah,
heard that
yeah.
part.
Yeah, I thought about that because I talked to my dad the other day, and he was just crying on the phone about how much he missed my mom, and he told me that story again. It was just beautiful. But so as he worked his way up into operational management, they bestow you with the honor of giving you the question, Bryce, we would like to make you a member of the Communist Party. Do you accept? Technically, you can say no. Once again, you somehow disappear and end up in Siberia. So everybody says yes.
Right.
And so once you do that, you get a very different passport. His passport was dark maroon. Everyone else's passport, all of our passports, Russian or communist Soviet passports, were red. His was dark red, maroon. And, he would wear it right in his suit jacket up here, and you would see the end of it sticking out, and you knew who he was, and you knew who those people were that had the dark maroon passport.
Status.
Yeah, status. Like, he can walk into any business and audit it and do whatever he wants. Now, he was very fair, and my dad was an American through and through, just he was born in the wrong country. Like, he would wear Jordache jeans and Nike shoes and Ray-Ban sunglasses and listen to Beach Boys and Elvis, and he would buy all this American stuff from the black market, right? Especially as he moved his way up into being a Communist Party member. He had more access to stuff. And so with that access came access to people in the local government who he needed to get a stamp on all of our passports that we needed to kind of leave quickly. The reason we needed to leave quickly is my brother's birthday was coming up. And if my brother had turned one more year older, 20, he now gets shipped off to the Red Army, the Soviet Army, to fight the war against Afghanistan. You think about what was Soviet Union fighting in the 1980s? Well, they were fighting against the country of Afghanistan, like we have been doing the last 20 years. And military men were coming back with limbs missing. And my dad's like, there's no way in hell that this Soviet Union occupies Armenia, makes it one of its states, provinces, and then is going to send our boys to fight their war when these young men are coming back with limbs missing. So he had a high sense of urgency. So by virtue of him having access to people in government, he was able to get the passport stamped in a way that we can leave before my brother was about to leave for the Red Army. So it took a little money, a little bribing, which he had stolen material that he made suits and sold on the black market, and that's how he made that extra money. He stole material from his work, and he has a beautiful story about that he tells, but it's the bottom line is that he had access to the right people to get the stamps on our passports for us to go into Rome, Italy. Now, in Rome, Italy, they couldn't figure out, because most people were just like escaping, but they weren't Communist Party members. They just didn't like the Soviet Union, so great, welcome to America, right? But you're a Communist Party member, and so they're asking him, why did you accept being a Communist Party member? And he's like, you don't understand. And he's speaking to someone at the American consulate in Russian. Because my dad spoke Russian, Armenian, Turkish, Arabic, until he learned English. English was his fifth language. Yeah, all fluently. And he's speaking to this guy, trying to explain to him, yes, they offered me the opportunity. I could have said no, but if I did, I'd be shipped off to Siberia. So I have to say yes. No one says no, right? And so just like Putin always wins the election by a margin of 100.
Right.
Not 99.
No.
Right? Like
There's 0 votes for the opposition.
Right. Right. The opposition sucks. There's 0 votes. Always Putin must win.
Yep.
And so it's the same thing. And so it took 10 days, man. Like everyone else was getting the stamp and being shipped off from Rome to anywhere United States. But we had to spend 10 days in these hotels. And but finally they got it. They pumped them for information. And off we went to the United States, man. And my dad was willing. He said, I would do that over again today. Like, even though he hates seeing what's happening with our country, because he sees that it's right out of the book of the Communist Manifesto. He's turning 90 in 2 weeks. Again, I was on the phone with him a couple days ago, as I told you, reminding him about his birthday party that I'm putting on. I'm just curious, like, would you do it again today? Because he watches the Armenian news today on television, and so he hears what's going on in the world.
Yeah.
He goes, I would still do it today. Like, there's no other country as great as the United States. And so that says a lot. And that's the reason why this podcast exists. This is the reason why we fight that battle. This is the reason why we will not be silent, right? And my dad, turning 90, literally tells me, like, son, the actions that you see are deliberately designed to confuse society, to separate society from one another, to create debt, create inflation, for big government to get even bigger. Like, this is exactly how the Communist Manifesto works.
Well, thank you for sharing. I want to take a quick second before we dive into like your landing in the States. What do you think your life would have turned out if your dad would have stayed? Like, what opportunities were there? I mean, do you have any vision of it? I'm sure you've thought of that.
Yeah.
What does that look like to you?
Yeah. So back then, so now Armenia is free. In 1993, the communism fell, and Armenia regained its I guess status as a independent country. But it took another decade, from 93 to 2003, for corruption to be minimized. There's still a high level of corruption there, but for corruption to be minimized and for it to become a democracy. So if I grew up there, well, I was 6 years old in 1980, so in 1993, by the time communist falls, I'd be 18, 19 years old, right? What would I be doing? Well, communism just fell. And my brother and I went back in 1994, the year after communism fell, because we had to move my dad's grave.
Why'd you have to move the grave?
Craziness, right?
Yeah.
Because when it was under Soviet control, they were like, this is where the graves can be. But once communism fell, wealthy Armenians from the United States went there and bought graveyards that were like in beautiful scenic areas. And they were like, please let the people whose families these are, let them know, like, in 6 months, we're going to develop resorts and stuff.
Right.
I mean, there's beautiful scenic mountains. Lake Sevan, which is a beautiful lake, is within eye shot. And so, these graveyards, like if you go to Maui, there's literally Hawaiian graveyards that are right along the water, actually where Front Street got burnt down. And I'm sure, because I was talking to someone who was, you were in the car with me. The guy, remember we asked him.
Weekend?
Yeah. In Salt Lake.
Yeah.
He goes every other month. He goes to Maui because he's got a business out there.
Yep.
And I was like, hey, how's the progress on Front Street and throughout Maui where it burnt down? He goes, oh, no progress. Because, these people are trying to develop resorts and stuff, yet these are grave sites, man, of like Hawaiian royalty. But it's right by the beach. And so these developers are thinking is resorts. They don't care about the graves. So anyway, we had to move my dad's grave site to a different place. Otherwise, it was going to get developed into a resort.
So you and your brother went?
Just me and my brother went.
In 94. How long and what was that like?
Yeah, so we went for 2 weeks because we had to hire a excavator. There was a whole process, and then take his remains to this new site, and then we had to find an Armenian priest who would do the whole kit and caboodle, right? Like, bless the new site. Yeah. And then it was just so overrun. So then we hired, it's not like the graveyards here where it's all perfectly designed. So like someone might, if you have money, you might build a fence around your mom or dad's or your next of kin's grave site. Someone might build a taller fence. Someone might build a mausoleum. They just go, this is the plot you have. What you build there is up to you. There's no structure. So over here, like, where my mom is buried,
everything was like symmetrical, perfectly laid out.
Yeah. Not the same over there. It's very different, right? The only way I could describe is that if you go to Louisiana and you look at the above ground graves there, right? How it's all different mausoleums, giant headstones, and whatever. It's similar to that. In kind of the Baton Rouge area and all that. So, anyways, all that to say that my brother and I are there, and we're seeing these giant skyscrapers, or what are giant apartment complexes, tall apartment complexes that were being built. Just the building stopped, the crane that's, alongside of it, just there, empty. Like one day, all construction stopped in Armenia because communism fell, funding stopped, and those were all government-owned buildings, and so people were, in that 1 year, started to live in half-built apartments. And they're not apartments like ours where they're wide. They're apartments like you would find in New York.
Yeah.
Right? Straight up. And so there's no windows. The stairwells are empty. There's no lights. And you just do the best you can. So you take one little hovel and you decide that if you can find power and you can do your own plumbing. So I'd be living like that. I'd be living like, so it would be a year after communism fell. I'd be 18, 19 years old. I'd be living like that, working at, either doing some kind of auto body work, auto mechanic work, driving a taxi, roadside fruit stand. It'd be something like that. A very different life than I live today when I think about it.
Yeah.
Now, as things developed, I like to think that the brain that I have would have been like spotting opportunities. So beyond 1994, maybe by the year 2000, I start spotting opportunities.
I think so.
I hope that I would be like a mogul, an Armenian mogul by then.
You would have. But that said, I think there's also an opportunity, which I'd love to get some insight, because my family escaped from communist Poland, and there's this aura of communism that actually passed down. So like there's a mindset, if you will, and not a good one, and
Right.
it's passed down. So I'm curious if you felt that from some of your family.
Oh, yeah.
If that passes down, and what's that look like?
Yeah, well, being the baby of the family, right? I was 6 years old. I was the least infected by the communist mindset.
Yeah.
Yet my mom and dad, who were in their 40s, when we came to the United States, my brother, who was 19, and my sister, who was 21, like they went to elementary school, junior high, high school, university there. So they were fully indoctrinated. Yeah. And so one thing I noticed, in fact, and I don't think I've ever shared this with you, is, and this was probably when I was in my late 20s, mid-20s. I brought a girlfriend to my mom and dad's house to introduce them, and I take them in the hallway where all families post family pictures and frames, right? I'm like, there's me as a kid in America. Oh, there's me 9 years old in America. And, so it's just family pictures. And we're looking at the pictures, and she brings to my attention, she goes, how come you're the only one smiling in the pictures? Everyone else, their lips are shut.
Yes.
No teeth, no smile.
All my family.
You've seen
like,
that, right?
All my family growing up, it's like literally like they're pissed off.
Yeah. And that's because that's how, that's the vibe. It was just this constant,
vibe.
low-key, depressed state that everybody was in. It's like fear and depression was like the blanket that everyone wore, right? And so I was just like happy because I started going to school in the United States, and they go, say cheese, right? In America, say cheese, and they snap the picture. You show your teeth and you smile. And so all those pictures, I'm smiling, they're not, but someone else had to bring that to my attention because I was just used to seeing them in a depressed facial expression. So it was pretty interesting, man, but I share that with you because there was this push-pull mechanism between the rest of my family, the four of them, my brother, sister, mom, and dad, and then me. I got Americanized a lot more. I got assimilated more into the culture, the American culture.
Totally.
They didn't.
Totally.
So they're like, man, we can't wait for you to grow up and marry a good Armenian girl. And I'm like, I'm American. I like the American way. I don't think I want a Armenian girl. Nothing wrong with them. I just was like really into the American girls, right? That's what I saw. And so, that was a big topic of issue. Like, my mom would, you're going to give me a heart attack if you keep talking about that, dating Americans and marrying an American, right?
Yeah.
So it was a really big deal for them.
Sure.
The culture of me having friends and going out, boogie boarding. I remember my dad got mad because I boogie boarded. I went to the beach. And he was like, you can't do that. We had a family member die. His oldest brother died in the lake in Armenia. And so my dad believes that we're cursed where water is concerned. And he beat the crap out of me just hearing that I went boogie boarding. So, of course, I wasn't going to stop boogie boarding. I just hid my boogie board at my friend's house. Then he'd come pick me up, and then we'd go get and he'd have my boogie board in his car, and then we'd go boogie boarding. And I made sure I came back with no tan, no nothing. You know, like, so I was a guy at Huntington Beach with, like, towels all over me because I couldn't have any evidence that I was at the beach, right?
Yeah.
It was just crazy, like the cultural. So I had to fake it like I'm an Armenian cultured, but I love the American way. I love American sports. In terms of like activities, and so it was a lot of push pull in the relationship. But as I got older and I continued to push my way into like I am assimilated as an American, they finally accepted that. But that was not until my like late 20s.
Yeah. A little bit of time.
Yeah.
So where I kind of want to finish the episode is your thoughts on the American dream. But in the case that, someone's watching this and they haven't heard your landing to California, if you just be so kind to be able to bring us up to speed, because your dad just pulled a heroic maneuver, got you out of Armenia through Italy. You land in California, the palm trees, the blue skies, all the land of opportunity. Yeah. However, even going through that particular transition, it's not a fun landing. So what did that look like? Kind of talk to us about that experience. And I want to lead into really the outlook of the American dream.
So once we're in Italy, Rome, and my dad and mom sit me down and like, hey, we're going to America, and America's a beautiful place, lots of opportunity for you guys. The weather's like amazing, not cold and snowy like Armenia. Like now they're letting me know, and I get it. I was the kid, I was the baby. Last thing they wanted me to do is go yelling to my Armenian friends, like, hey, we're going to America, right?
Totally.
Like my brother and sister knew how to keep a secret. Obviously, I probably didn't.
Right.
So that's why it was a big secret. But now that we're in Rome, Italy, they can tell me where we're going and how amazing it is. So the bar, the expectation they set for me where the United States is concerned, I really thought like the streets were paved with gold and it was just this amazing, everybody likes you and they take care of you, food is abundant, which that was the only thing that was true. Food was abundant because in Armenia, stores are empty, you're waiting in long lines for bread, for butter, for cheese, only to get to the end of the line to the counter and sorry, we're out.
Gotta love communism, my friends.
Yeah.
And
the only glimpse of that people got in recent times was during the pandemic, with their toilet paper and fucking bottled waters that were out.
Yep.
Shelves were empty. But that's nothing compared to like the little convenience stores that are just empty. Right. So anyways, we landed at LAX in the evening because I remember a van picked us up, that gentleman's van who let us stay in his apartment. And I'm looking out the window and it's dark, but I remember like I'd never seen roads like that. Like we have in Armenia, it's mostly like bumpy, semi-asphalt, semi-dirt roads. Even in Yerevan, the big city. I was born in a village called Kirovakan, but in Yerevan, the big city, even that was, so Kirovakan, the village I was born in, was just all dirt roads at the time. Yerevan was asphalt, cobblestones, dirt, right? Very narrow roads. Think Ireland, Scotland, roads like that today. Dude, we're seeing like 5-lane highways, right? Yeah. Giant signs, cars are zipping by, but it's dark because we landed like 9, 10 o'clock at night. But, LA traffic, right?
Well, shit, even coming from Michigan when I was 21, coming from like 2, 3-lane roads and then Southern California, like 10 stacked, I was like, holy hell.
Yeah.
So imagine coming from communist Armenia.
Bananas. The next day we wake up and it's just like everything is different. Like, the apartment that we're in is different than I thought. Like the outside is different. I'd never seen a palm tree before. Just everything. Like there's pavement everywhere. There's dedicated parks for dogs. Not just humans, dog parks, right? It's a dog park. The school looked inviting. It wasn't just like this brick building that looked dark and depressed. It was like a school system that had playground and all those things. Like the Armenian schools didn't have any of that. And so it was very eye-opening. And I remember when about 2 days later, the gentleman and his wife took us to Gemco. Think Kmart. It was Gemco. It was Zodi's, Gemco, Kmart. All around the same time, we went to Gemco. It was like a department store type thing, where think Walmart, where they have food and clothing. Bro, the shelves are stacked. They give us a shopping cart. They go get whatever you want until your food stamps come in the next few weeks, right? Mm-hmm. And so my mom's just like filling this cart up with bread and cheese and deli meats and what is this? it was like cans of Welch's grape juice. Put a whole bunch of cans of those in, all types of fruit, right? And we're just pushing this cart to the checkout, and these folks were kind enough to pay for it. And I remember as we're pushing the cart to the parking lot, to the van, I'm like tearing open the bag and eating bread and popping open the Welch's grape juice and drinking it, and it's like fruit of the gods. Like, this is craziness. I would eat like dry sourdough bread in Armenia, and there was no fruit juices and stuff that you can get access to.
Well, this is such like a blonde moment or American moment when we were in the Uber driver this past weekend in Salt Lake, and one of the guys actually escaped from Ukraine when he was 11. He talked about bananas, and, and both of you like shut up. Like, I remember the first time I had banana. I'm like, banana? What are you talking about? Like, dude, that's a luxury, bro. That's a luxury.
Yeah.
So that's amazing, man.
Yeah, man. When I had my first banana, I was like, oh my God, there is a God. Like, somebody magical created this, because this doesn't exist in Soviet Union. Apricot, peanut butter, all those things, man. I was like, holy hell, like, what are you Americans like hiding from the rest of us, But also with that, it only took a few days as we realized, like, you're a foreigner, you don't speak English.
Yeah.
And so you get made fun of.
Yeah.
Funny haircut, funny clothes, go back to your own country, you effing foreigner. Your parents are taking all of our great jobs. And I'm like, my dad delivers newspaper at 2 a.m. and then pumps gas at 6 a.m. Like, what great job is that, right? And then as we moved into our Section 8 housing complex, Shade Tree Apartments in Santa Ana, you're surrounded by gangbangers and just other immigrants. And you're like, oh, shoot. Okay, now I'm being beat up for being a foreigner. You're not accepted. It's not the inclusiveness that we have today in 2024. And we're talking 1980, right? And so it was a very different time. And then they put me in school. Like, today, they have like tutors and stuff who speak your language who will help you. Bro, they put me in kindergarten, and they have, I don't know if you remember, in kindergarten on the ground, the teacher has taped off little areas that you would sit, and then they read you a story. When you're not sitting at your desk, you sit in your little taped off area. I had to pee really bad. And I was trying to tell them in Armenian I have to pee. And, I'm a 6-year-old kid, right? So we got there in June. School starts in September. So a few months later, I'm fresh off the boat, my friend, knowing less, right? And so, but I know where the restroom is. So I get up to go to the restroom. She yells at me and points back to my little square to sit down. So I do. I can only hold my pee for so long, so I just evacuate myself. I pee myself. So now all the kids are laughing and yelling at me, not only for my funny clothes and my funny haircut that my mom gives me, but for peeing myself, right? It wasn't until, like, I threatened to kill myself. I ran away from school. Probably about 4 months in, it was so horrible, man. I ran away. I saw the gate open. I ran. And I'm heading towards our house, which was probably about 3 blocks away. I'm just running. The principal's chasing me on foot, and they had probably called our house because my mom was coming this way. So principal's chasing me. My mom's coming this way, crying, yelling at me to stop. Now I'm between the principal and my mom on the sidewalk. At the edge of the sidewalk, I see a broken beer bottle. I grab a piece of the glass and I just hold it up to my arm. I don't even know where I'm supposed to cut. I hold it up to my arm and I yell to my mom as I'm crying, like, tell him to stop, otherwise I'll cut myself. So she's yelling in Armenian to stop. He doesn't need to understand Armenian. He sees that he needs to stop. He does. My mom comes, hugs me, picks me up. It was a whole fucking mess. It was just a bad school experience. Like, there was no tutor or whatever. It wasn't until, like, towards the end of the year that they found some Armenian tutor from Glendale to come down once a week to start teaching me English. Otherwise, I was learning at the playground, and you just learn all the 4-letter words first. But it was a pretty distressing 2 or 3 years, the first 2 or 3 years being in country.
Oh, yeah.
In the United States. But, we got our legs under us, and before you know it, my dad was able to rent a house, and then from there he opened up a little tailor shop, and then ultimately bought his own little house in Anaheim where he lives now, and the American dream was established.
Ah,
Yeah.
fires me up, man.
Yeah, man.
I appreciate that. I appreciate you so much. So I guess as we conclude the last couple of questions, speaking of American Dream, it's crazy to me, so freaking crazy to me. The people that love America the most are immigrants that are from a different country that escape here. And when you ask them about their experience, literally the Uber driver we're in, when I asked Dean, he's like, "Yeah, dude, America's the best country ever." If you ask a person born and bred in this United States if that's the answer, they're not going to tell you that, which is the huge aspects of this show, is to teach leadership, promote capitalism, defend free speech, the bedrock of our society. So I guess my question to you is, why do you believe that immigrants really have the highest affinity towards our country? And then lastly, what do you just say to someone who says the American dream is dead, as I look at it right here?
Well, understand that the people that were born here and raised here and given citizenship status by virtue of being born here. I was not given citizenship status. I had to wait for my mom and dad to become citizens, so then I can take my citizenship test. So they had to take a citizenship test and pass. My dad failed 3 times because, once again, you remember the Communist Party, pass, we're not going to let you become a citizen. So I'm like rooting for my dad. I'm like, come on. So after being here for 5 years, in the United States for 5 years, then you can apply to become a citizen. And you have to know American history. Like, you have to know the 3 branches of the government. You have to know what the stars and stripes on the flag mean. You have to be able to kind of articulate, how America was founded. Like, they ask you a series of questions, right, during your naturalization test. And so my mom passed, my brother passed, my sister passed the citizenship test. But my dad, he just kept getting denied. It was the 3rd time that he finally passed the citizenship test. And that allowed me to take the test because I was still a minor. I was probably 15 or 16 when I became a citizen. And like, wow, you're a citizen of this great country. But the people that are born here don't have anything to contrast. They don't have any perspective they don't know what it's like when electricity gets shut off every day.
Perspective, that is the word. Perspective.
Like, do you know how to go to Armenia and know that during this time of the day, you better fill up your bathtub with water, and that water is to drink, to cook with. If you shower, you're going to go shower in the public showers. Like, you're going to have to take it's called a Zhiguli, which is a little Russian car, looks like a Fiat. You take it, and if you make it to the showers with your whole family stuffed in that fucking car, you better wear flip-flops in those showers because you're going to get some kind of disease. Like, when my brother and I went there in 1994, it was still that way, right? Like, water is rationed, electricity is rationed. I think it's like that in North Korea right now.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. And so, like, you don't know that here. We'll have a power outage every now and again in the United States when a transformer or something blows up somewhere. A car crashes into a telephone pole and this little neighborhood is having a blackout. Bro, like, that was normal how it was for us. And so when you don't have that perspective, how can you appreciate the United States? I think every American at the age of 13, you turn into a teenager, you should be shipped off to like Tijuana for a 90-day period to experience, life. Like, do something, like build shelters, build a well, go to Guatemala, go to some 3rd world country and experience living there for 90 days.
Totally.
And you will come to the United States and you'll be like, man, I love democracy, I love capitalism, I love freedom. I'm going to make sure I protect this with everything I got. But instead, when their iPhones don't work, when they're 35,000 feet up in the air in an airplane, people get pouty here. That's the American way right now. People get pouty when the internet's not working. Motherfucker, you're 35,000 feet up in the air, plowing at 540 miles per hour. The internet doesn't work. You ain't got wings and you're flying. Shut the fuck up and just shut the fuck up, right?
Full stop.
Yeah. Whereas, like, an immigrant's like, fuck the internet. I got no wings. Pilot, you just mind your shit. Flight attendants, you all mind your shit. I'm going to sit here and mind my own business.
Thank God I don't have to walk.
Right. And so perspective is what's missing. So that's, if more Americans saw what I saw and what 3rd world country people see and experience, the fear, the lack of access, all of that, you will appreciate the United States even during its worst times. And we've had some bad times, even in recent times.
Oh, yeah.
Right? Like, we haven't been a shining example of democracy per se, but we're the best that's out there. I'll tell you that.
Oh, yeah.
And then, is the American dream dead? No, it's actually more alive than ever because people are so weak, so soft. I saw Dana White.
Yes.
Dana White,
love
the president of UFC. Talk about this. He goes, people have gotten so soft, so weak, so complacent that if you just give a little bit of effort,
just a little bit of savage.
Just a little bit of savage in you. Just get out of bed. Get out of bed and actually just try and do something. You will own the world, he says. And that is very true. And with the internet now at your fingertips, because it used to be that, well, unless I can get on ABC News or the late night show with this guy. No, now you got social media. If you can be a little compelling, take that iPhone that you have, instead of scrolling through social media and TikTok and Snapchat, actually make a value-based piece of content, let it go viral. You could start a business within days if you have some value to add to humanity. So the problem is people lack a little bit of savageness and a little bit of effort and agency, and they lack creativity. They're like, oh, I got this phone. I could see what everyone's doing, and they're all having a better life than I am. And I'm like, you got this phone. If you have any skills at all that would solve a problem, start making value-added videos on YouTube, TikTok, Instagram, and within a month, like, people will be like, you do that every day, you put out good value-added content, people will be like, how much does your service cost for whatever, fitness coaching, nutrition coaching, mindset coaching, real estate, whatever it is that you are good at. Maybe you're good at just changing a car's oil. You know how to work on your own car? You do how-to videos on how to work on your own car. People will buy a course from you on how to change your own oil, your spark plugs and filters and all that shit. People have become dumb and uneducated and lazy and complacent, and so the savages like us, we will keep taking what they won't.
Yes, we will.
Yeah.
And that is the essence of the show, my friend. So, dude, I am so grateful for you. This has been an
Likewise.
awesome journey. I'm just so excited at the new branding. I appreciate your guidance on that. Any final thoughts before we wrap today?
No, my final thoughts are this. Like, once we lose it, it's going to be impossible to get it back, right? And so if you're listening to this and you're asking, like, so what can I do about it? I don't care if you have 5 followers or 500,000 or 5 million followers on social media. You may not have social media. You might have neighbors. Like, start speaking up against what is happening. Like, everyone is quietly waiting for someone else to do the speaking up. And it's usually Elon Musk or some foreigner, some immigrant that's fallen in love with this country. Like, Elon Musk raised capital and bought Twitter. And like every other interview he goes, I regret buying Twitter. Like, in terms of a headache for him, it's the biggest headache he has to deal with.
Yeah, it's not a good business decision.
It's not a good business decision.
It's a good decision for humanity.
Yes, because Twitter is America's town hall, right? And he knew that the government had put its arms around it, that the FBI was silencing things.
Yes.
And he bought it and he proved it, right? And then he changed the name of Twitter to X, which I love. But why does it take an immigrant to do that? Like, why can't Americans who were born here, bred here, if you value it so much, my Second Amendment rights, I will die, you can take the pistol or rifle out of my... All right, cool. You down with all that? Then go change someone's mind with proper education, especially like a young kid who's being indoctrinated at a university about communism. Explain to them, say, what if you were to start a business? Did you know that 33% to 48% of your revenue from your business goes to a invisible business partner that you never asked to have? And they would say, who? And you would say, to the government. They go, well, that's good. Well, and that business partner gets to decide what happens with that money. So now you have to work, because I don't know if you know this, but the average business owner right now has to work from January 1st till May 29th to pay the government. From May 29th to December 31st, that's your money if you're an entrepreneur. Like, that's how much of the year you pay off to the government.
And probably less in California, actually.
And probably less in California. Yeah, because that's just a national average. So all this to say that, like, final words, what can people do? Like, proactively open your mouth and educate others. Not by, shitting on Trump or shitting on Biden, but with love, compassion, educate people. It's just the university system educated them towards communism. You could educate them with empathy, compassion, and understanding towards capitalism and freedom. And that next generation will then shepherd this country to a better place.
Amen to that, my dude. And as we kind of wrap, the question we both asked ourselves, if not us, then who?
Then who?
And if not now, then when? So, my dude B, as we finish off this episode, appreciate you, love and respect. And friends, I hope you got a ton of value from this episode. Like and share this would be the big call to action. Remember that adversity is your advantage. We'll see you in the next episode.